And on to the details now. The Trump administration on Thursday broadly eased U.S. sanctions on Venezuela's oil industry to encourage higher production. Now, the Treasury Department issued a sweeping general license allowing U.S. companies to engage in routine activities involving Venezuelan crude and state oil firm PDVSA from production and transport to refining and sales. This replaces the earlier policy of granting individual waivers. The license bans the non-commercial payment terms, debt swaps, gold or digital currency transactions, and excludes entities linked to Russia, Iran, North Korea, Cuba or China. Well, the move came as Venezuelan lawmakers approved reforms to the country's oil law, expanding autonomy for private producers and formalizing production sharing models. Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, called the changes a historic leap and said Venezuela was taking important steps after speaking with President Donald Trump. And Venezuela's legislature on Thursday passed sweeping reforms to open the oil sector to private investors, meeting long-standing U.S. demands. Lawmakers approved changes to the hydrocarbon law that dismantle decades of strict state control and ease rules on foreign participation. To attract much-needed private capital after years of U.S. sanctions, the bill introduces a more flexible royalty system. National Assembly President George Rodriguez, the brother of interim President Delcy Rodriguez, said the changes would bring positive outcomes after prolonged hardship. Under the new framework, private companies can explore, produce and market oil independently without forming joint ventures with state firm PDVSA, which previously had to retain a majority of ownership. Now, the reform paves the way for U.S. oil majors to return to Venezuela's home to the world's largest proven reserves, despite output plunging to about 1.2 million barrels per day. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Thursday that he planned on opening up Venezuela's airspace after a discussion on Thursday with the country's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez. Trump also said that major U.S. oil companies are going to the South American country to scout out projects. Trump made his comments during his first cabinet meeting of 2026.
The president of Venezuela informed her that we're going to be opening up all commercial airspace over Venezuela. American citizens will be very shortly able to go to Venezuela, and they'll be safe there.
Well, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration said on Thursday it has withdrawn 4 advisories to airlines about airspace risks in the Caribbean, including one covering Venezuela, and said the warnings are no longer needed. The notices had been issued as precautionary measures, while the Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said the move would help reopen travel links between the United States and Venezuela. Following the announcement, American Airlines said it plans to restore flights, noting it is coordinating with U.S. authorities and will finalize schedules after receiving government approval and completing security reviews. U.S. commercial flights have been barred from Venezuelan airspace since 3rd of January, a restriction now set to ease with the FAA's decision. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Thursday he expected the implementation of an agreement by Russia not to fire on Kyiv and other cities for a week because of winter weather, as announced by U.S. President Donald Trump. Zelensky said the days to come would show whether Moscow would abide by such an agreement. Speaking immediately afterwards in his nightly video address, Zelensky expressed his thanks to Washington for the initiative, which he described as halting Russian strikes on energy targets. Also, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Thursday that Kremlin leader Vladimir Putin had agreed to refrain from firing on Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities for a week because of cold winter weather. Negotiators from Ukraine, Russia and the United States held unusual 3-way contacts last weekend in the United Arab Emirates. Early on Thursday, Trump said that Russia had agreed to pause its shooting for a period of time.
I told that Russia's not doing any shooting for a period of time during this horrendously cold weather.
Because of you.
So we We asked President Putin if they could stop the shooting for a week. They're being hit with proportionately the kind of cold that we're being hit. It's much colder in Ukraine to start off with, but it's really cold now, and he agreed to do that. We appreciated that very much. It's a nasty war. It's a nasty, nasty war.
And for more on this, we have Akhilesh Suman joining us. Well, Akhilesh, good morning. What do we understand about the scope and credibility of this reported pause for some time, with the next round of talks, of course, scheduled for this weekend? Where do we see this going? What can we expect?
I think that after 4 years of war, between Ukraine and Russia, we saw in Abu Dhabi recently that there has been trilateral meeting between Ukraine, Russia, and Washington D.C. And I think it was a bit calming for every party that yes, some people are sitting together and they are talking, because everyone was surprised that whether Zelensky will agree to sit with Russians, Zelensky's representative will agree to sit with a Russian representative directly or not. But it happened, and it is going to happen again. So I think that as President Trump has said that he has personally talked to President Putin, and he has told that President Putin will not fire on Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities because this cold is going so bad. Minus 30 degrees centigrade cold is there. So there is a humanitarian crisis. It's not the question of Zelensky as a person, not Zelensky as a president, but it is a question of Ukrainian people. And he expected that President Putin will oblige him. Trump told his cabinet. So I think there should be some credibility, as President Trump is saying, and he's making an open statement. And it must be reaching President Putin that Trump has said that, and Zelensky is also believing. So I hope that President Putin will respect it. And in next round of talks, as you know, that even the Chancellor of Germany, he is also seeing some silver lining in this assurance by President Trump. So let us hope, let us keep our fingers crossed that people of Ukraine will get some reprieve after President Trump has announced this his talk with President Putin. Though he did not specify that when did he talk with President Putin, in what manner, but yes, he is telling this, and we have to believe it, because President Trump and President Putin are in constant conversation in one way or other. They understand each other very well. Many a time we have seen that President Trump is, articulating President Putin's demand. So in that way, his, efforts are sincere, being seen by many quarters. And let us see that how it turns up, because people of Ukraine are really under great distress because of this war and cold. Because of this cold, that when the whole Zaporizhzhia plant is disabled, in that situation, energy supply is at stake in Ukraine, and one must hope that President Putin will will show some sort of kindness, on people of Ukraine.
All right, Akhilesh, as you mentioned, that we can give some credibility to the peace truce, with another round of talks scheduled for this weekend and Russia inviting President Zelensky to Moscow. How serious does this push for peace appear, with US-led efforts also intensifying?
The situations are turning, moving towards peace, because President Zelensky understands the limitation of Ukrainian army. And at a time when President Trump has diversified his attention in many quarters of the world, and in that situation, there is a strong belief in Ukraine that, they cannot get the support of USA in the way they were getting support 3 years ago when President Joe Biden was there. President Trump has his own understanding about this whole war, this whole conflict. Even Europe cannot support in unlimited way to Ukrainian army, because they have also limitations. I think that Russia is seriously thinking that there should be some truce. So I think that in next round of talks, and if President Zelensky really goes to Moscow, it will be really a game changer. And since Putin will be there, Zelensky will be there, and if Zelensky and Putin are sitting together, maybe you cannot be sure. I cannot predict it now, but maybe Donald Trump, puts some more energy into the talks. So I think that it will be fruitful if Zelensky visits Moscow, because Putin has always been telling that there is a need of talk between Zelensky and Putin. Everyone wants that there should be direct talk, and if Zelensky and Putin are talking directly, there will be no better than this. Let them talk. And I hope that if Zelensky visits Moscow, it will be a great thing that for the confidence building between Russia and Ukraine. And the way Zelensky is talking about, the whole security guarantee, who will give the security guarantee? Actually, the security guarantee has to be given by Russia because, you cannot get
All
security
right.
guarantee without Russia. So I think that will be a game changer if Zelensky visits Moscow.
All right. All right. We look
Yeah.
forward, as you said, that it can be a game changer. Thank you so much for all those details.